Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe, all of the things. You know, I come on here a lot and I defend Lamar Jackson. And the reason I come on here and defend Lamar Jackson and other quarterbacks like him is because they're not allowed to have like down. They're only allowed to ever be up. They're only allowed to be at the highest level or they're trash. Either they're the best in the business or they're trash. They don't get an opportunity to get the excuses that their contemporaries that may not look or sound like them get. And so because a lot of other people won't, and there are people who do, but because there are a lot of other people that won't, I believe it's my responsibility to school people when they say really, really dumb stuff. So the latest way to throw a slight on Lamar Jackson is this comparison of him to Daniel Jones. Yeah, I said that right. People are out there trying to tell you that Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones, there's not much difference. They mask it. They'll say, oh, well, Lamar is better than Daniel Jones, but he's not worth $50 million. Well, who threw the word $50 million out? See, the way that they try to quantify the disrespect is to say that someone's not worth something. It's one of the most infuriating things people do is when they try to tell you what your worth is. Like, who are you to decide what I'm worth? Who are you to decide what I should command? We've all been guilty of it. I've said blah, 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 it's not worth this, blah, 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 is not worth that. I'm not absolving myself, but it's disrespect. Make no mistake about it. It's disrespect. Because what you're worth is really and truly based off of what you can negotiate and what you bring to the table. What you bring to the table. So let's review, because I don't want anyone to get this misconstrued as me dissing Daniel Jones, but it's going to sound like it because I have to prove the point on how much better Lamar Jackson is than Daniel Jones in order to show you that when you compare the two and you say, well, I'd rather have Daniel Jones because the money is better over Lamar Jackson because he's going to command too much money, and then the excuses that you use, I have to show you, like, yo, this doesn't make any sense, right? So let's take into account the first thing. A lot of people believe that Daniel Jones is having a really good year this year, and that the only reason his year is not better is because of the injuries. There's been so many injuries to the Giants, and I cover the Giants, so I know they've had a lot of injuries. But do you guys not remember 2021 for the Baltimore Ravens? 2021 for the Baltimore Ravens, everybody got injured, including Lamar eventually. He got tired of like carrying the entire team on his back, and he was injured. Like, that's how bad it was for them last year. It was so bad that not two, but three of his running backs were injured. Not for a game, not for a couple games, for the season. I digress. They talk about the offensive line. And the offensive line for the Giants hasn't really necessarily been lost for the season, but they've had people in and out, right? But mostly, they've just underperformed according to what people thought they would do. Evan Neal is a project. He's not a plug and play, ready made, forget about him type of offensive lineman. He's a guy who needs a lot of work. But beyond that, right? They make the excuses for Daniel Jones and why Daniel Jones is because the offensive line is this and the offensive line is that. And they say, well, Lamar Jackson has a way better offensive line. Let's just look at the offensive lines as they're constituted right now. Let's start at the left tackle. Would you rather have at left tackle a healthy Andrew Thomas, who's one of the best young offensive linemen in the game? Or would you rather have an in and out of the lineup Ronnie Stanley? When he's in the lineup and he's healthy, he's one of the best in the league. But he's out of the lineup a ton. He's out of the lineup a ton. Let's continue. The Ravens were able in 2019 to take Ben Powers in the 4th round of the draft. Ben Powers out of Oklahoma, 4th round of the draft. That's their left guard. The New York Giants at left guard have Joshua Ezeudu, who's a 3rd round pick. They also have Shane Lemieux, who they took in the 5th round. They had, at one point in time, they had Ben Bredeson there. You've seen Nick Gates playing there. You've seen Feliciano in and out, right? Like, you've seen people in there. All of these guys, right? Is Ben Cleveland way better than them? I can't say yay or nay. Now, the center position is different. The Ravens drafted a center this year. They drafted Tyler Lindenbaum, who I thought was one of the best offensive linemen in the draft, but he's still a rookie and he's still learning. But he's better than Joe Feliciano, absolutely, for sure. Like, it's not even close. He's better than Nick Gates. I don't care how much people love Nick Gates. He's better than Nick Gates because neither one of those guys are legitimate centers. Neither one of them came up playing center. Lindenbaum has been a center. He's not learning on the job. He's not trying to figure it out. Neither one of those guys were ever starters for a long period of time at other positions. They were backups that got moved to center out of necessity, found a little bit of success maybe, or just a little bit of staying power because of injury, and now the Giants are trying to roll them out there as their center. I don't expect either one of those guys to be the center next year. Right? Right guard. At right guard is Mark Glowinski. Mark Glowinski is a guy who came in as a free agent pickup from Indianapolis. And when he came in, people were like, oh, well, Glowinski, he's a legitimate this, he's a legitimate that. They let go Kevin Zeitler. Or Zeitler. I apologize if I'm messing up his name. But they let go of Zeitler. And Zeitler went to Baltimore. He went to Baltimore on, I believe, a 3-year, $22 million deal, $8 million signing bonus, and the I said, hey, the Giants didn't think he was good enough. Fans say, oh, well, the Giants just couldn't afford him. Well, I mean, come on, people. What are we doing? Are you trying to win or are you trying to win? Because if you're trying to win and you're trying to protect this asset of a quarterback who's supposed to be so good, isn't it worth it to pay that right guard that walked right into Baltimore and got a starting job? Something's amiss. Something's awry. Something doesn't make sense because you go and you don't pay Zeitler, but then at right tackle, you draft the worst pass blocker of the three. Make no mistake about it. Evan Neal, of the three guys that were considered to be the top guys in the NFL draft, Evan Neal was the worst pass blocker of the three. He was the best run blocker, and you could probably argue he had the highest upside. or he was the worst pass blocker, the second best run blocker. But we'll say he was the best. Cross was clearly the best pass blocker. I said I thought they should go Cross. People thought I was crazy. Cross is up there in Seattle, I believe, protecting the hell out of the quarterback that the New York Giants thought wasn't any good. Here we go. Meanwhile, the Ravens have Morgan Moses, who's in and out of the lineup. He's in and out of the lineup. A 31-year-old dude. It's not like he's some spring chicken. So which line is really better? I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, I'm definitely going to take the Ravens line over the Giants line, because the Ravens line, even this year, has been in and out of the lineup. It's been piecemeal. It's been one person in, one person out. You know, it's been a constant. Lamar Jackson. Someone argued, oh, well, the Ravens offensive line is rated higher than the Giants offensive line. Why is that? Does anybody know how an offensive line gets rated high? It's from the production of the people behind them. So, yes, when you put Saquon's year, and he's having a great year, that comes into play. But the element that Lamar Jackson brings as a quarterback means that if he was on the Giants, those lanes would be much bigger for Lamar. Nobody's afraid. We don't want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Nobody's afraid of Daniel Jones running the ball. Nobody is up at night going, oh my gosh, Daniel Jones will kill us with his legs. I think they should be. I think the Giants should lean into him as a runner more. But these other teams are not afraid of him. They want him to run, because if he's running, then that means Saquon Barkley is not running. And Saquon Barkley is a bigger threat as a runner than Daniel Jones is. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The biggest threat to run on the Baltimore Ravens is Lamar Jackson. He's the biggest threat. The biggest threat to run on on the Ravens is the guy who is, without being injured, consistently going to get you over 1,000 yards rushing every year from the quarterback position. That's Lamar Jackson. So when the game plan is put in, the game plan is put in to stop Lamar Jackson. Not just Lamar Jackson, the runner, but Lamar Jackson, the passer. Hey, let's sit on the tight end, because we know that's what he likes to do. He likes to get it to the tight end. Let's one-on-one with these wide receivers on the outside and make him throw pinpoint, accurate passes into small windows, because they don't do a good job of scheming up open receivers. It's not the case in New York. Brian Dable, he's really good at scheming up guys to get open. That's why they've still been able to find open receivers even as their receivers have gotten hurt. Even as their receivers have gotten hurt, they've still been able to find open receivers. That's because the scheme is great. The scheme is one that allows for success. And even in a scheme that allows for success with receivers who are in the NFL, you know what we're getting from Daniel Jones. You know what we're getting. If he throws over 30 times, you know for a fact you're losing. If it's in his hands to be a winner of the game, you're most likely losing. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson, the ball has been in his hands ever since he touched the field. From the time he was a kid till now, he has been the man. He has elevated teams. In high school, he elevated a team way beyond what they were before him and what they've been after him. In college, he elevated a team way beyond what they were before him and what they'll be after him. In the NFL, he took over a team that was heading for the dumpster. He took over a team that was heading for the lottery. They were heading for a top 10 pick. The coach was heading for being fired. He took them to the playoffs. Next year, playoffs. Last year, no playoffs. Why? Because everybody got hurt. People talk about the New York Giants and how they've had so many injuries. I would like to present for you the 2021 Baltimore Ravens. And I want someone to explain to me why it is that Lamar Jackson didn't get any type of love, any type of bail shot to him and his team when he was missing players, but we're constantly trying to give Daniel Jones an out. You think that the Giants have had a lot of injuries? Let's look at their key injuries. Let's look at the key guys that they have lost. And we'll do offense, but we can do defense as well. It's not going to matter, right? On offense, key guys that they have lost, either for an extended period of time or for the entire season. They lost Daniel Bellinger for 4 games. Now, are you going to say that's an extended period of time? I'm not. Right? I'm not. They lost Colin Johnson. Y'all are sitting here telling us how they just don't have any wide receivers. You can't count Colin Johnson as a loss. They lost Shane Lemieux for half the season and for more really because he's been in and out. Shane Lemieux wasn't even guaranteed a starting spot. He was fighting it out with these other guys. They lost Marcus McKeithen, who was the second offensive lineman taken above his North Carolina buddy, but they lost him. I can't call those 2 losses. Neither one of those guys were guaranteed starters. Definitely not McKeithen, questionable for Lemieux. They lost Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson, who was a early round pick, a second round pick, could have been a factor, came back, had one good game. They lost him. That's a loss. They lost Sterling Shepard. That's a loss. Right? Who else did they lose? Where are all of these injuries? Where are all of these things that have people like, oh my gosh, the calamity? You can't count Kenny Golladay. All of you guys think he's terrible. So you can't count him as a loss, right? Because you all think he's terrible and he's healthy now, and you refuse to throw him the ball. Where are all the offensive linemen who were injured that are the legitimate guys, the guys that they're counting on? Let's go over the 2021 Baltimore Ravens. Let's check them out. Out the gate, Rashad Bateman was on the IR. Miles Boykin on the IR. Nick Boyle, the backup tight end, on the IR. You know they play heavy 2 and 3 tight end sets in Baltimore. So losing the number 2 tight end is definitely going to matter. Ben Cleveland was on the IR. J.K. Dobbins got hurt for the season. That's one running back. Right? That's one running back right there. Gus Edwards got hurt for the season. That's 2 running backs. For the season. But people are over here talking about the Giants. Well, I'm not done. I'm not done. Because Ronnie Stanley was out for the season. Right? Ronnie Stanley was out for the season. Probably played maybe 4 games that season. He was out for the season. So what are we talking about? They had Alejandro Villanueva starting for them. The guy was threatening to retire. He was washed in Pittsburgh. He wasn't good at all. He wasn't good at all in Baltimore. So they've got the entire left side of their offensive line out. They've got their center that they eventually replace with someone else. They've got a center that they replace with someone else. They've got the ghost of Villanueva. Like what are we talking about when we try to compare? When we try to compare who had what hurt the most? All that. And the only thing they ever try to do is they try to compare this season stats of Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones. How disingenuous. You want to make a real comparison, compare their entire career. If you really want to make an argument for Daniel Jones, show us how he hasn't been that much worse than Lamar Jackson over their entire career. You want to know why they won't do that? Because if they did that, you would see how utterly stupid the comparison is, how disrespectful the comparison is. Because we all know that Daniel Jones is not on Lamar Jackson's level. He's never been on Lamar Jackson's level. He's never going to be on Lamar Jackson's level. Why? Because he ain't LJ. You can give him a cool name. You can call him, you know what I'm saying, Danny Dimes and all this other ridiculous stuff. But you can't deny the fact. You can't deny the fact. They're not the same. Because the first thing you'll go to is accuracy. You'll tell us that, well, Daniel Jones is a more accurate quarterback. No, he's not. On a career, Daniel Jones is a 63.5% completion percentage. Lamar Jackson is 63.7%, which means statistically, Lamar Jackson is a better, more accurate passer. You want to compare yards? 2,000 more yards, or excuse me, not 2,000 more yards. Let's say 1,500, 1,700 more yards than Daniel Jones. You want to talk yards per completion or yards per attempt with Lamar Jackson having tight ends only and never any real legitimate elite receivers? 7.4 for Lamar Jackson, 6.7 for Daniel Jones. Interceptions. Lamar Jackson has played in 19 more games than Daniel Jones has. He has 5 more interceptions. He's played in 19 more games. He has 5 more interceptions. Let that seep into you. He's played in 19 more games. He has 44 more touchdowns than Daniel Jones has. And that's just us talking about passing. That doesn't even bring into the argument this giant other piece of the game that we all know Lamar Jackson is hands down better than he is. Most damning is record. 19-30-1 for Daniel Jones, 45-16-0 for Lamar Jackson. What are we talking about here? Do I have to go to the rushing numbers? Do I even need to bring the rushing numbers into account? Last year, the Baltimore Ravens lost the entire defensive backfield. All of them got injured for the season. All of them. They lost D linemen. They lost linebackers. It was a mass unit. Lamar Jackson was still Lamar Jackson. He was still Lamar Jackson. 2021 season, 8-9. He didn't play, I believe, the last 4 games of the season. He was still Lamar Jackson, 4 or 5. This year, the New York Giants are 7-5-1. Let's see where they end up. I'm hoping that it's the playoffs. As somebody who writes for the Giants, I'm hoping that it's the playoffs, because I would love to be able to write stories that are positive and speak to like positivity. I don't want to have to talk about, well, this is why. I don't want to go into the off season already. I want to continue to bring stories and talk about the great things that are happening. This is not beef against Daniel Jones. This is beef against you guys who are out there trying to give this man the same level of stature as someone who's been in a unanimous MVP in this league. Not 10 years ago, not 8 years ago, 2 years ago. His off year is better than Daniel Jones' best year. His off year is better than Daniel Jones' best year. And yes, if the Giants had him instead of Daniel Jones, they would have won more games this year. Why? Because when you have him, those rushing lanes are more prevalent. That's why running backs that don't compare to Saquon Barkley, who's up here, running backs who are here can have success, because you can't just key on the running game from the running backs with the Ravens. And even if you do, Lamar Jackson will still burn you if you give him a sliver. Because when he takes it and he runs with it, he's looking to score. He's not just looking to pick up a first down. And for all of you people talking about he plays a reckless game and blah, 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 Daniel Jones has been hurt every time when he's tried to run. Lamar Jackson has not been hurt running. Lamar Jackson has been hurt in the pocket. There's stats and there's facts. The stats might support whatever type of narrative you're trying to spin if you want to cherry pick them. But the facts are the facts. Lamar Jackson is here. Daniel Jones is somewhere else. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Until next time, peace.